Okay, I am so happy to see so many of you here. And this venue is also super fantastic, really. I'm really happy to be here today. And I'm going to start off my talk with telling you a story, something that happened to me this past Monday. I woke up and I was about to head to a meeting. It was at the other side of the city, so I needed to take the subway. I got out of my apartment, I walked to the subway station, ran down the stairs as I was in a hurry, like I usually am. The subway rolled in and I went through the doors. And what did I see? I'm going to show you what I saw. I just forgot this little essential thing here. I came in through the doors and I saw this. All the people were sitting, looking down their phones on their screens. And nobody really saw that I came in. I bet all of you here can imagine this situation, wherever you go. Whether it's if you go to the subway or if you go to a cafe queue, people are constantly staring down their phones all the time. And therefore, I'm going to ask you a few questions now, and I'd like the people who know these quantities to raise their hands. How many of you think that you know how much time we actually spend looking down our phones? One people? Two persons? Yeah, I didn't know either how much time we actually spend. How many of you know how many connected devices we carry? And on average? One. Yeah, I know. I didn't know either, like the average, how many devices we own. How many of you know how many social media accounts the average person has? I didn't know either, which is why I'm now going to tell you. So on average, we spend 2 hours a day looking down our phones. We have, on average, 3 to 4 different connected devices, and we have, on average, several social media accounts. And this is one source, Global Web Index. I bet there are several sources and several numbers of this, but this is what I found. And me, that is standing in front of you today, my name is Elsa. I have a background from KTH, studying media technology, which I'm about to graduate within right now. I also have some background spending time at NUS Business School in Singapore, where I have a minor in technopreneurship. This autumn, I have spent a lot of time producing content for an organization called Datatjej, and their main aim is to inspire more people to see how important it is to know about technology and also to consider a career path within technology. I've done this as part of my regular production, so I run a production company as well. I have a really broad background, and I'm a sort of person who is kind of between different boxes, but I know for one fact my strengths and my main driving forces, and that is storytelling, innovation, which is why I went to Singapore to study this as well. Innovation is when you think about something in a new way and try to make new rules or break new patterns, break new paths. To me, yeah, I've also been able to practice innovation by working at several startups, so 3 of them are here. But the main reason why I am so passionate about technology is really this, because I see that you can be really innovative with technology and see you can learn how to create applications that makes other industries more innovative and can be really effective for people. And that's really what I am. I'm a people person, and I see the relationship between technology and people as the interesting and really exciting part of technology. And this is also why I'm interested about corporate social responsibility. And I believe that through technology, we can, for example, make more of the UN Sustainable Development Goals more effective. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about something that I see most as an inspirational topic, and it's recently been mentioned by The Verge, which is a magazine for like tech and inspiration and lifestyle in general, to be one of the most hot topics in 2018. And I don't know if you can see this, but it says that underneath the header, A War of Words. This article was published the 17th of January, so it's really a recent topic. But that is something that's called time well spent, and that's how we spend our time with technology. I will also talk about the attention economy today, and my talk is not going to be too far. I will only talk for about 30 minutes, and I'd like you to see this as an inspirational lecture. But yeah, so that's my background, but I'm also considered being a millennial, and I just wanted to recap this whole thing of how technology has gone from being the first television in our homes to becoming the phone that we have in our pockets and this type relationship. So if we go through a few generations, just to sort of like recap how we have worked with technology, I'll start by telling you a bit about Generation X. And Generation X are the people who are considered being born between 1965 and 1985. So what happened here? Well, most likely this generation was brought up not having too much of a relationship with technology as we have it today. Perhaps you remember, but like you got the first television. That was a main thing. When internet came, you needed to connect to the internet. You didn't have it like the way you have it today. Then we have the millennials, which is my kind of like time phrase. That's considered being the people being born between 1980 and 1995. So yeah, I remember I got my first phone when I was like 10 or something, but that was a really, really simple phone. I didn't spend too much time with it like this. Perhaps I brought it forward to play Snake once in a while, but I didn't check the phone that often. I really, really used the phone for the main purpose. My parents gave it to me so that I could call them when I went from school, but I didn't use the phone that often as I do today. Then we have Generation Z, which is the people that are born between 1995 and 2012. And I believe that this generation is the first generation who has really developed a deep and really like connected relationship with technology. I see my younger cousins sitting with their phones all the time and their iPads all the time, and it's really the screen time that is the main like purpose and the main activity that they have with technology. But what's also really good with this generation, and since I'm also a person working with inspiring more people to be interested of like technology and coding and development and everything, is that they have, well, I think next year they will have it compulsory in the school system that everybody are supposed to learn how to program. So that's something that can kind of shift the relationship we have with technology in the future. And then the last generation, which we don't really know too much about, but because that's the people that are being born from 1913 and onwards, but that's the Generation Alpha. And well, you can only forecast what kind of relationship they will have with technology, but I'm not sure if they will interact with technology like this. It might rather be something like this, having holograms and everything. So that's really, really interesting. And as you can see, this technological development and the relationship that people have with technology is highly disruptive. Like 3 exclamation points here, really. And I think it's really interesting to see, like, and think about who the people are that are developing this disruptive relationship that we have with technology. Currently, it's probably you guys sitting here, older generations. They might use these kind of apps. I'm not sure, but I thought that, well, maybe this is the most common used apps among this user group in here. But I'm also thinking what relationship do this user group have, and what relationship does the younger user groups have? Perhaps the younger user groups are using these apps more often, and that's the reason why they're sitting so much like this. And it's been written a lot about how this relationship that we have with technology affects the mental health of people, affects our children, because if they sit like this, can they really focus on their homeworks? I'm not sure. Also the social relationships that we have. How is really a family dinner now? Is it interrupted by technology, people staring down their screens? Also democracy, which is a bit more complex, but I guess this has a lot to do with what you're served when you're looking on your phone and what applications you're using. So that can be something to think about. And what I want you to know after this session is that something that you might already know, but it's not a coincidence that we have this really tight relationship with technology, looking at our screens all the time. It is really something that companies has decided beforehand, because this is a KPI chart. I've been working a lot within startups, and many companies use KPIs, key performance indicators, to sort of measure the success of the company. Like, where are we heading? Are we really developing products that can have really good revenue streams and everything? And the most used KPIs that I have encountered, at least, is the time we spent on a website, for example, or an app. It is also like the frequency of use, how often you go back and check in an app. Yeah, and then exit rate, of course. You want your user to stay on the app as long as possible. So that's the most common KPIs that most startups and companies use. And this is the thing. The reason, really, why we constantly pick up our phones, even though we recently checked whether we had any notifications, and the reason why we just always tend to pick up our phones and then half an hour later be like, oh, I've spent half an hour looking at my phone. I'm not really sure what I look like. This is the main reason. It's dopamine. And dopamine is nothing serious. It's something that our body produces, and it's the same neurotransmitter you get when you eat if you're hungry, or if you sleep when you're really, really tired. So it's no like happy pill. It's rather a comfort neurotransmitter, really. And it's the same thing you get when you look at your phone. And like I said in the beginning, this thing about time well spent is a topic that's really, really hot today. And I first got inspiration for this session here today from an organization called Center for Humane Technology. And what they really want is just to inform more people of why the digital society looks like this today. Everything is optimized towards screen time, really. And just inspire for a new kind of thinking how we can do when we develop the digital world we're living in. And Tristan Harris is really the leader of this organization. He has been holding a lot of TED Talks, really, really interesting. So I really recommend you checking him out if you're interested in this topic and want to learn more, because I'm just going to go through some different brain hacks that he has mentioned that causes this dopamine relief, really. So what's really important, and the reason why at least I pick up my phone all the time, is this thing. Our brains are built toward wanting to know what comes next, really. What comes next? You're always interested in knowing if something new comes. And a comparison that Tristan does is this thing with slot machines. And that's, you know, this machine that is in casinos where you pull and then you get 3 items in a row. So that's really the same thing. You just want to know what's next, so you play again and again and again. And this brain hack really is something that's been integrated in our phones and in our apps. And that's why we have this functionality of dragging down to update a feed, because we want to know what comes next. But as in this example with this image here, if you go and you check your email once again, even though you checked like 10 minutes ago, it's just a brain hack that it's like embedded in our applications. So it's really chosen to be this way. And yeah, it ends up with us using and checking our different applications up to 150 times a day, which is a lot. And it's really a lot of time spent doing that. It's time that we could have spent on other things as well. And another brain hack that is really, really interesting and that I didn't really know about is this fear of missing out. And that's one thing that is really sensitive towards our brain as well. And that's really the reason why we have notification systems. We don't want to miss anything out, so we have designed it in a way so that we get a notification if something happens. But the thing here that also causes mental health that I talk about in some of the previous slides is that if we don't get a notification for one day, we might get anxious because we're like, is it nothing happening today? Am I missing something out? Why am I not getting a notification? So it's really, really interesting. Yeah, our brains are not really, really built to work like this. A third brain hijack that I thought was really, really interesting, but that is a really strategic way of making us wanting to use technology more, is the infinite feeds and autoplay. And this is really something, you know, the Facebook feed, for example, it never, never ends. You can just keep scrolling and content will appear. Maybe it's not content that is interesting to you, but having algorithms being able to serve you more content, even though you're really like fed up, that's a third really interesting brain hijack that's the companies use to make us want to have a really tight relationship with technology. And this infinite feeds and autoplay really, really has to do with menus as well, because like I said before, sometimes you just end up having scrolled through an application for 30 minutes, and then you step out of this application and you're like, well, I don't even remember what I did this last 30 minutes. So you have had some sort of like zombie brain. And that's because you just get into this flow of taking in information, but you're not really, really choosing for yourself. Because the menus is the thing that is deciding for you. So take Netflix, for example. If you consider yourself wanting to watch one episode before you go to bed because you really need to sleep, because you're getting up really early tomorrow, you watch one episode, but then Netflix has this embedded menu that serves the decision for you. It really takes the decision for you. There's no button here saying, well, no, you have to go to sleep. It says, well, next episode is going to play for you. I've already decided this for you. It starts in 8 seconds. So this is really interesting. When you start to wrap your mind around this, you really see technology in a different way. So I'm going to give you an example of how technology sort of disturbed me, like also this week, because I'm still taking one course at KTH, and we wrote this lab report. And what happened here was that I was really focused. I was writing this lab report. But then on the other side, my lab partner needed to ping me and ask me for a document. So it wrote to me on Google Hangouts. And I got this, which was really not too disturbing, but it really is disturbing because when you are aborted doing a task, on average, it takes 23 minutes to refocus and get as focused as you were before. So having this technological system of constantly having abortions is really, really stressful for us. And yeah, this is Microsoft research, and it's been a lot of research done, but this number of 23 minutes is really like, there's a paper of that specific number. Also, research has shown that the more we self-interrupt, the more we teach ourselves to interrupt. So it becomes more difficult for us to focus more than 5 minutes if we're used to having a society where it's a lot of abortions all the time. Yeah. And I'm just going to show you an example. This doesn't only happen with Google Hangout. It happens a lot. Like our whole technological framework is built like this. So this is really what happens to me every day. I try to be focused, but my devices are just like pinging me all the time, telling me, hey, I need attention. And then when I want to refocus, I can't. It takes a while for me to do that. So to give some like positive feedback towards this whole system, I'm now going to give you an example of what technology you could develop and what technology you could use to sort of make this whole relationship different. And this is just an example. I bet there are so many more examples that you could use, but with this Google Hangout, for example, what if we could develop applications that are aware of me wanting to be able to focus and spend my time more well, and having an application that could help me to do so. So say that I'm sitting here, I'm working on my lab report, I really need to stay focused. So I have a menu option saying, well, help me to remain focused here. And as you know, we are developing a lot of artificial intelligence, so I bet you can definitely put that into this context as well. And sort of integrate your computer and your Google Cloud with your iPhone, for example. Because then you could have, with my lab colleague, for example, that wanted to ping me, they can see that I'm focused right now. I'm having an option where I decided that I wanted to be focused. And then if they write to me, they know that. But still, if they wanted to write something that they were afraid of forgetting later, they could have written a message that is holding, because the computer knows that I want to become or be focused here. So this is something that we can do with technology, but we're not doing it. And I don't know why, but there's so many possibilities of what we could do with technology. And this really, really functions well if we still have an option in our devices. So, for example, if this is really, really urgent, this thing that my lab colleague wanted to ask me about, then it knows that I'm focused, but it can still, like, my lab colleague can still have a choice of wanting to interrupt me if it's really, really important. But just knowing that, well, she's focused now, she might not want to be disturbed.
Lab is on fire.
What?
Lab is on fire.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yes. So yeah, so that's really just an example of how you can think around this. But we know that technology is so advanced and we have so many tools and we can really develop stuff that would make us get more time back. And also this thing about menus and how Netflix take the decision for you. Well, what if we have technology that could help us to be more efficient and be more onto things? Because I often get emails that really has this really easy request, like, okay, we need to talk about this and we should schedule a time. But I just, like, I lose so much time waiting because I think, well, I'm going to reply to that email later or something, but I've still gotten interrupted. But what if we had menus that are more advanced and could suggest that, okay, well, this person wants to talk to Elsa about something, maybe they should schedule a meeting, and then I could sort of, have an application that helps me to be more effective. And it's really, really like this trade-off that we have today. I don't want to shut off my iPhone. I don't want to shut off my devices because I have a fear of missing out. I still want to be a part of this technological landscape. But the other alternative I have is to become this distracted that I am today, that you saw in the video. But this whole session is really about restoring choice. This thing about being able to choose for ourselves how we want to interact with technology and what applications we could create and develop that could help people to get more time back. Because back to the whole thing about how society is affected by the technological landscape today. Well, this is a quote by Prince saying, anyway, all these computers and digital gadgets are no good. They just fill your head with numbers, and that can be good for you. It's so much information that we're taking part of, but what is it really that we want to take part of? And that's a really, really funny image. It's from a co-working space out at Hammarby Sjöstad. It's called Go to 10. And they have that image of a young kid having no likes, no comments, and no followers. And back to this thing about mental health. Well, I believe that so much information and not knowing what you want from it is something that causes mental health. So I thought of this since internet, back to the slide about millennials and Generation X and Generation Z and Alpha, this is still a pretty new industry, if you want to call it industry. And as with many industries, for example, the cigarette industry, if that's considered an industry, you might not know that it could be dangerous to you before it's gone some time. And it took some time for people to understand that, well, cigarettes aren't really good for you. So what did they do? They put warning signs on the packages. And maybe this is something that the society would need to do if it continues like this, having warning signs if, for example, visiting Instagram or something causes mental health. Maybe that's how you would need to do. But the difficult part is that this is what we're currently monetizing on. Like I said in the beginning, the KPI charts. It really becomes a chicken and egg problem because we have already set the revenue streams of the digital society to be about monetizing the attention. So it's really some issue with this thing. How are we going to do? Well, I really think that, and that's something that is spoken about, time is the new type of luxury. Time is the new times luxury. People want to get more time back. And by knowing this really, really deep value that people are having, we could develop technology that answers to these deep values. And it doesn't really have to be only about time. It can be about anything, really. But understanding what the deepest values are and create technology that suits that would be really, really good. And maybe we can see it when this whole technological informational age industry, so to speak, develops, as for example, the industry with cigarettes. Maybe this is what type of technology we will produce in the future. So, for example, can we demand a sort of high-end technology? And now I'm also thinking about an old industry, the food industry. It has had some time to grow and to develop. And what we've done there is to sort of put labels and marks on food that is really, really high-end. For example, ecological food, they have stamp on them. They're more expensive because they have higher values within it. And I'm thinking maybe this is what we will see will trend within the whole informational industry as well, and information technician industry as well, because it's really about what consumers demand. So if we want applications that help us more, we might ask for it. Because this is what happened before. When privacy became really, really important to people, Facebook developed that as well. So in order to be able to create more applications that put back time to us, is it in the hands of the consumers to demand this? Or is it really about the people that are creating the technology that needs to offer this in the first place? Because there's so much power and skills and knowledge in this room, but in general, there are so many people working with this that could develop really, really strong applications, as with the Google Hangout thing. And we have artificial intelligence. We have a lot of scientifically based design that could help people to get more time back. It would be really, really cool if we started to think more about what applications we could develop to give people more time back. And back to this KPI chart, because we really know that we need to be able to monetize things in order to create good applications. So the new age KPIs could, for example, be that you'd have more satisfaction scores. So if I use my phone, for example, and after using my phone and like being stuck with my phone for 30 minutes, instead of having this feeling of like, what did I do for these 30 minutes? I'm not sure. Being really aware of, well, now I accomplished doing this and this and this. My satisfaction score of using my phone is really high. That could be a futuristic KPI, or having choice-based CPC. So if you click a lot and you have a lot of menus where you actually have choices of what you want to do next, this could be a really cool KPI. So for example, there, if I get a notification from Facebook and I know that I'm going to spend 20 minutes now, like just knowing, just having this thing about, instead of having technology decides for you, you can have your choice. So maybe you should see this as a stair, really, where the bottom line is about understanding the technology user's deepest values. The middle ground would be something like, well, start to think about new KPIs that we could use instead of only having the time we spend in front of our screens. And the top shift could be like find new ways to monetize on deeper values instead of screen time, really. Because if we could do that, we could go from this to this and really restoring choice when we use technology and when most people use technology. Because the greatest luxury of it all is really time, at least for me, knowing how to spend my time well in my life. And that is just an idea I really wanted to plant into your brains today. It's really a new topic, but I recommend you to check out this organization, Center of Humane Technology, because it's really, really interesting and it's a lot of good research about it. So, yeah.